Good morning, everybody. This is Dil Vikramasinghe, and it's another Monday morning, and I've just come home after the school run. I'm in a heap here, and I've got beautiful sunshine in my face, which I'm just going to draw the curtains. So you're very welcome to. This is the third week in a row that we've been talking about the menopause, and I am joined by counselor psychologist Dr. Zuleika Daly. And I'm also this time joined by our naturopath, Tara O'Neill. You're both very welcome. How are you this Monday morning?
Very
How
good.
are you, Zuleika? Yeah. Oh, yeah, go on, Tara. How are you?
don't want to talk over Tara. I'm well, thanks.
Yeah, good
and
here.
Any school runs? Anyone else on the school run this morning?
Yeah, school run this morning. It all went to plan. A bit nippy down here in the country, but all good. The sun is shining. That's the important thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Tara, you're actually joining us from Tipperary. So you recently moved. How are things in Tipperary?
Very good. Thanks, Dil. Yeah, it's nice to be down the country, back to my home place. And yeah, we're settling in well. So it's early days yet, but it's all going very well so far.
Last week we talked about with Nicola Keeley, and we really got an insight from uh, from a perspective of the menopause. And have you had any? It's still isn't it? Like it is still. Have you got insight? Was one women from being open about their.
Yeah, I think one of the themes that keeps coming up whenever we talk, and certainly one of the themes that's really sort of paramount in my own kind of head, is that theme around shame and the unspeakable. There's something about women going through this, that it's representative or symbolic of, not being as good as we were. And so I to me, that's probably the biggest connection, that's the biggest barrier, that kind of denial that we were talking about, and the shame around this process that we go through as women, even though, as we keep saying, this is a process that we will all go through at some point, or nearly all of us will go through at some point. Yeah, and I suppose I was thinking about that a little bit today, and I don't know if because I was thinking about you, Tara, and how I was curious about what you might talk about. But I suppose one of the things that was coming up when I was thinking about you was around food, right? Is that something? So I do have some thoughts around that, but yeah.
Absolutely. And I suppose just to kind of backtrack a little bit, the way I see it from well, first of all, I want to say we are all still hot. It just comes in hot. And that's the important thing to remember.
You're going to it on Monday. I'm hot. And it's true because Sarah said so. Thanks, Sarah. I don't know how Emery's going to feel about this. You calling me hot like this for sure. I'll take it. I'll take it where I find it. Thank you.
There you go. And I think that if you look at it from a sort of a holistic point of view, I think it's like the three-legged stool. I love that analogy of kind of the mind, the body, and the spirit. And if one of them is under pressure, one of those legs of the stool is under pressure, other legs of the stool come under pressure as well. So I think, like, from a body point of view, there are some very physiological changes, big changes going on. And wherever there's change, there's chaos and there's stress, whether it's huge or whether it's minimal. The body is transitioning. So that's a real factual thing about the menopause. And then if we look at the spirit, people have different ideas about it, such as what you've just mentioned, Zuleika, sense of loss. Some people love it. They've had really bad menstrual over, the decades of menstrual flow. Some people love it. So there's some very different spiritual things going on as well. And then the mind, I suppose those changes that happen with, the hormonal imbalances that come with the physiological changes. I think with that, that brings along anxiety, fear, lots of different emotions as well. So it's trying to adapt, I suppose, a lifestyle. It's a really good time. I think it's a really brilliant time in your life to actually take a little breath and adapt new lifestyle, good lifestyle habits that are going to take you into the next life stage, really. So if you think about food, a lot of people would talk about difficulty losing weight, for example. So it's a really good time to start looking at your diet. If you're not already doing it, lots of fruit and veg. Without going into the specifics, there's lots of things you can take to help to actually balance the hormones. So things like the brassica family, you should be eating those at least 3 times a week. And very good for clearing estrogen. Things like flax seeds and linseeds and lots of healthy oils are very good for your joints, and again, very good for hormonal balance. So there's lots of things food-wise, and now is a really good time to sort of, take a step back and just say, right, what do I need to do to support the 3 legs of the stool, to take me on my
That's
journey.
interesting. That's interesting, Tara, because I remember when I attended an appointment with you, you said, what do you want to look like in 10 years' time? Or what do you want to feel like in 10 years' time? And I suppose it's all about putting the groundwork now so that then you can reap the benefits when you're on the other side of the menopause. But I think the biggest problem here is the acceptance of it. Because with anything, it's like when it comes to mental health, if you want to do something about it, do something about an issue, you first have to kind of confront it and accept it and embrace it and integrate it. And like I think there's one wonderful thing that we can do to support ourselves and maintain that balance, because as you said, the balance is gone off for some reason. But if women are not actually in a place where they can actually accept it, then they can't get the help. Isn't that right, Zuleika?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And isn't that what we kind of got, I suppose it's another theme that keeps punctuating what we're talking about. And just to say, that's really interesting, Tara. I'm taking tips. I'm writing this all down. Linseed, brassicas, because this is something that I think we should know. Like, we should know. This should be out there somewhere, shouldn't it? And that's really great information to have. And I like the idea of the stool. I suppose I'd be thinking about in therapy, I suppose, still, that we have this idea of it being dynamic, or maybe a systems kind of piece, like an engineering piece, maybe, your stool legs, and something goes wrong in one part of the system, then it doesn't just sit in that system, it impacts everything, like a dynamic kind of pinball machine, doesn't it? It's like boom, 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 all over the place. So if there's something wrong with our system physically, then it's going to affect ourselves emotionally, etc., etc. So I love how we all have different ways of saying very, different language. It's really lovely I love that analogy. I think I might steal that from you, Tara. Can I?
Please do.
And I do remember. Yeah, no, I think you're right. This kind of acceptance piece. First of all, you have to realize that it's happening. And that's what we've been saying, that many of us don't realize this is what the problem is, because it's maybe not just hot flushes that we're getting, or the common kind of things that we hear about. So we have to realize that it's happening. Then we need some kind of acceptance, which we need sort of not just within ourselves. We're impacted, I suppose, by the shame that that outside world puts on us, like, oh my God, it's the menopause, this is so embarrassing. We're no longer able to, I don't know, have children or be attractive, which Tara tells us that's not true, which I'm absolutely I'm
I know.
It's great. But I suppose one of the things that really for me links into what you're saying there, Dil, about acceptance, is something that came up for me that strongly this week. And I think it came up when this all started. And I suppose that's around control and acceptance of bodies. And I suppose one of the things that really has come up quite powerfully, and I know that there's quite a lot of research, because it's only recently that I've been looking into this, like the two of us, is this kind of idea that if we have a history of body issues or food issues around control, that the perimenopause and the menopause, oh gosh, this is another time for the tree to start shaking. Yeah. So here we go again. Oh my God, I thought I had this sorted, and now my body, I can't trust it anymore because it's putting on weight, and I seem to be eating normally, and I'm feeling anxious, or all these kind of things. So I kind of, I'm not the person that I was. And of course, that's going to trigger us if we have food or body issues. So this is something that I suppose when
And
we're
who
talking
doesn't?
about
Like, who doesn't
exactly,
have body and food issues? Everyone has
exactly.
got some degree of an eating distress or discomfort in their bodies, and I think we know that it's like, for me, that's a pandemic. That's
Yes.
every human in this earth has had struggle with their body and their eating habits. So obviously when the menopause comes, you suddenly realize you can't even now. Before, at least you could lose weight if you did all
Yes.
the crash dieting, but now I think all the crash diets in the world, I find people find it difficult to shift away. Does that resonate with you, Tara? What Zuleika just mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that totally, I hear that all the time. So I think it is a really good time, as I say, it's a life stage that you're entering into, and if you can see it like that, as we spoke about the next 10 or 20 years, what am I going to do if you have those resources within you? And we do. I mean, I think it's a great thing. We live in a great time that we're actually talking about this stuff. I mean, imagine our poor mums and our our ancestors who didn't know what was happening. We have so much evidence and we have so much knowledge around us nowadays to actually understand what's going on, and with understanding, comes confidence, I think. If the resources are there, and I suppose if you can take some positive action, it's action, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot about positive thoughts, but positive action, I think, is a key thing. If you can get your resources together and get busy with it, actually, and see it as a chat, as a what would I say, as a maybe as a project. If you can turn it into something active, and yeah, there's lots of resources out there. So I think, yeah, go for it.
So,
Make it a project, try and make it as interesting, I suppose, and as fun, and get involved in groups. And us sitting around here today is a great way to share things and take the fear out of it. Really, take the fear away from it.
it's interesting when you say project, because I think as women, we tend to externalize projects. It's like the extension, the garden,
Yeah,
get the
yeah,
kid
project
to, I
B.
don't know, going to college. It's like, how about making yourself a
Project
project
B.
for a change?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because the next life stage, I'm sorry now if I'm going into the next phase, but after menopause, the next phase it's another life stage, and it's adapting to older age. So this is a really good time to actually get the fundamentals in place to bring us through those other stages we have to go through. Long-term
Yeah,
project, life.
that's a very good point. Yeah, that's a very good point, Tara, because I don't think a lot of us, never mind talking about the menopause, we don't want to even talk about menopause. But if you can at least navigate this stage, and you're like learning skills to kind of manage this stage, then the next stage is not going to feel so scary.
Yeah,
So talk about being out of control. The older we get, the less control we have over our body.
and I suppose it's like gathering a toolbox, isn't it, of things that you can pull out of the box. I mean, I make it sound very idealistic, but there's tools that we can, whether they're mind, body, or spirit, they're things that can help us, forward as we move on in our lives. So now's a great time
So,
to refresh the toolbox.
so like it feels like a bit like an existential conversation here, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah,
isn't it? It's like
yeah.
it's menopause. It's just a part of the bigger picture, and where is this going, and what's the meaning of life,
Yeah,
and how is it going to end?
yeah,
Yeah, no, it's true. But actually, I didn't cop that until you just said that. I didn't cop it, and you know what I was thinking of, which of course is so connected, is connection. When you were talking about your toolbox, Tara, I was thinking, yeah, the biggest thing in my toolbox is connection. Connection, as a relational therapist, I'm thinking about connection with myself and connection with others. Connection with myself and connection with others. And I suppose when I think about a toolbox, I suppose it's not really as neat and tidy as that, but that's what I'm thinking. And I suppose connection is such a core piece of that whole kind of existential, saying all of that stuff around, the key pieces around our existence. But yeah, I suppose that's a really interesting lens still, putting an existential lens on it, really, because we're thinking about anxiety, agency, control, connection, all of those, and endings, all of those really core kind
It's
of
an existential crisis. That's what it is. I think that's what the perimenopause and menopause puts
Chaos.
women into such chaos, because it's an existential crisis. Because they're suddenly really, we've been plodding along, doing the things that we were supposed to do, whether it's career wise, whether it's family wise, and then at some point you were like, surely I'm going to get some time for me, and then you hit the perimenopause, and you're like, oh.
It's like, yeah.
So what about all these dreams that I had? I was going to do this and that, and whatever, and then, oh dear. Is that what it is?
And then your confidence falls apart, maybe, and you suddenly start feeling rubbish all over your body, and you don't know why, maybe. And and then you deteriorate further, maybe in the worst case scenario, you deteriorate further because you haven't got, maybe in your group, you haven't got women who are talking about this, or you didn't. So that's I really like that lens. I'm going to be thinking about that. And if there was that lens on menopause and perimenopause, and on kids who start menstruating, if it was seen more through that lens, then maybe we'd get more support.
The bigger lens you talked about.
The existential lens. Like, this is an existential, well, it could be a crisis if you don't get any help, or it could be an existential kind of transition. But maybe we'd get more support if we saw it as it's just the menopause. Everybody goes through it. You'll be fine.
Minimizing it. You can't minimize things, because then you're not able to process what's actually happening. And Tara, tell me, amongst your friends, how do you find it? Are people talking about the menopause, perimenopause? Are you seeing that there is some movement, or is it, are you like Zuleika and me, the menopause girls in your group?
Yeah, admittedly, I am, absolutely. But when you bring it up, people love to talk about it, though. And what amazes me is everybody's going through different things, and they're all experiencing different things. So that's really interesting. Again, which is life. Everybody experiences differently. I think for a lot of my friends, it's that household situation. They've got a lot of teenagers, and the hormones are like roller coasters. And then the mums, their hormones are like roller coasters. So it really explains the chaos that goes on in houses sometimes, with those teenage years, because the mums are battling with their roller coaster also. So it really does add to the stress of it all, I think. And what is going on here? Question. And we're
because you pointed out to me, Tara, in a session months ago, about how when a person enters their adolescent years, their hormones start going up, and then at the start of the perimenopause, your hormones start going down. So you have this interesting, what is going up and what is going down. It's just like, and at some point it's going to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember studying it in college, and my lecturer, I was appalled to hear the lecturer say that your ovaries start to splutter estrogen. I thought, what an awful way to describe it. But splutter estrogen. Sorry, I can't say it. It's really hard to say it together. But so that's the real physiological change. So your body is actually, other parts of your body are starting to manufacture estrogen. So that's one of the real physiological changes. So it's your brain and your muscle, which is why you start to experience muscle, your muscles start to waste. So protein is really important during this time as well, to help to repair and build up your muscle. But so those physiological changes are really huge for us, as you say, because you've been actually going through, decades of having these hormones at your disposal, and suddenly they just start to
you're taking them for granted. You didn't even
whatever.
Only
then
when
it's
they
funny.
go, when they start going AWOL that you realize it. It's only when they start decreasing that you realize, oh crap, I shouldn't have taken you for granted when I had so much of you about
Yeah.
to play.
Oh my goodness! If we could bottle estrogen, it would just be amazing, wouldn't it? Because it has it's such a beautiful hormone because it protects our heart, it protects our bones, and it protects our muscles. And then, yeah, once it starts to deplete, then those areas start to, come into up against challenges to maintain their strength. So, and that's another thing, I suppose, talking about the education or to get not education, but to get as much information as you can. There are wonderful things you can do to actually, I know a lot of people fear osteoporosis, for example. But there's some real things you can do to go out there and see if you're prone to it. For example, you can do a DNA test, or you can go and do a DEXA scan to actually see what your bone index is like at this stage. So people actually, instead of guessing. So like, I know from a nutrition point of view, people would say, "Oh, I need to take more calcium," but you can actually get some tests done to back up whether you really need to take as much calcium as you think you need to take. Because sometimes we can be taking all these supplements, which I find in nutrition sometimes anyway, people are taking supplements and they don't really know why they're taking them. So it's a really good way, go get your DEXA scan. A lot of the healthcare plans have them on their plans anyway, so you can get them done. So you'll actually know. And then if you have a family history of it, like for example, my sister has she's osteopenia, but I don't, and my mother didn't. So it's very random, it's not something that you just know by looking at yourself or something that you feel. You can actually go do things to find out whether you're at risk or not.
That's really good
It's
to
a
know.
fountain of information, yeah. And we've got people watching. So if you have any questions for Tara or indeed Zuleika, just send in a comment. We'd love to hear your questions and comments. Speaking of symptoms, because I think a lot of women don't even know that they're going through the perimenopause until something really big happens, But there's loads of symptoms that like when do you initially think, "Oh, hang on here, am I going through the change?"
No, it took me a long time to realize it. I mean, years. It took me several years to realize it. I noticed that I was suddenly needing to go to get my knee sorted and my neck sorted, and that it would just go out constantly. And then I'd go to somebody and get it sorted, and then it'd keep going out. And that just wasn't me. It just wasn't me. And the most frightening thing, I suppose, is that while I had sort of little heart kind of not issues, but what maybe not
Fluttering.
palpitations, but not fluttering, exactly, on resting, it became really common. Like I was getting it nearly every day on resting. And so as I said to you before, Jill, I spent thousands on consultants and various professionals who didn't twig. So it took me a very long time. And I can't believe it because I'm not that dim. Do you know what I mean? I'm not a particularly dim person. So I'm like,
You're the
why did I
furthest.
not?
You're the furthest thing from dim that I know, Zuleika. So I think it's really.
I'm your average Joe. So I'm thinking there must be tons of other people out there not quite copying. It does sound in retrospective. I suppose I'm saying it because retrospectively it sounds like, well, how did you not cop that? Do you know what I mean? But I didn't. And partly it was because I was communicating with these really smart consultants and other people who were professionals in their field, and it never came up. So I think you get into this kind of bubble with people, because I didn't have the typical symptoms of hot flushes and those kinds of things.
And I think life happens as well. So you're kind of in between those appointments. You are trying to, you have your work, you have your family life. You're trying to balance all of that. I think it can happen to so many women that they're just going day by day, one day at a time, and then it really takes a conversation like this, to go, hang on a second, maybe I need to go talk to someone who actually knows about this,
Yes.
as opposed to going to some general practitioner or someone who works in other areas, but someone who actually knows about this stuff when it comes to to the menopause. And Tara, what's your experience with the clients that you have worked around this area? Is this a common thing where there's so many women who are literally going weeks, months, even years without knowing that they're actually experiencing the perimenopause?
Absolutely. Now, I do think there's a lot more awareness out there now. Definitely, I'm getting that, in the last year. There's been lots of, media, I suppose, exposure to it. So you definitely see it going in the right direction, that people are talking about it a lot more. So, if we're talking about it, we know, the signs, and we can look out for the signs. And obviously I work in that business. So a lot of people coming through to me would actually know. But mainly, I suppose, the main thing people would come, the main symptoms, I think, would be kind of anxiety would be a big one. Inability to lose weight would be another one, and hot flashes. They would be the three most common symptoms. And I suppose because the awareness is out there, people know now that's actually I'm starting, or I'm in the middle of, where am I though? And that's the really ambiguous thing about the menopause, isn't it? Nobody knows where it starts, and nobody knows when it ends. So that's kind of the fear part, and the dip into the unknown, which I suppose is life, isn't it? I mean, you definitely know you're finished if you haven't had a period for a year. That's the only definite thing about the menopause, peri and the menopause. That's the only thing. So you've actually gone through the whole thing, and then you go, "Oh, I'm actually menopause, post-menopause now." But some people mightn't know they've even been through it. And there's a very good resource out there. I think I might have said it to you at the time, Dill. It's the Wellness Warrior. The lady set up a really good website, and she has become like a wellness, menopause coach. And she has lots of stories up there. And one that struck me, there was this particular woman, and she was 38. I suppose, again, it's different ages for everybody as well. And she was
That's rough.
She thought she was pregnant, and she was actually, because she had not had her period for so long, and she was actually in the menopause, and she just didn't realize. But once she knew, then so many things made sense to her. The past kind of 8 years, she'd been like moody, depressed, lots of anxiety, having a really hard time with her children, and relationships were really badly affected for that decade. So that was in hindsight. So if she'd had that information going through it, she could have had the tools, or got the tools into the toolbox to actually help her cope with that three-legged stool that was wobbling on all sides.
Yeah. Wow. And I'm just thinking so much has come up out of that, because someone feeling anxiety, they'll go to see a therapist, like someone like Zuleika or myself. It's interesting how that all kind of could have been kicked off because of the hormonal issues, and then the fluctuation of the hormones. And then I wonder if that would be caught, hopefully it would, because maybe the therapist would have some kind of awareness around this. But then also the loss that client had to process, gone through the menopause at such an early stage. Good grief, that's rough.
Yeah.
That's gotta be tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So forearmed is forewarned, eh? So the more information I think that we have out there, and that we can see the signs, be body aware. I think it's just a great time, I suppose, from your 30s onwards, to adapt, positive lifestyle habits, good eating habits, exercise, and try to become more body aware, so you can actually pick up on the signs and connect with other people who are talking about the same thing, and then there's a better chance of knowing what's going on internally.
Yeah, and that's the work, I suppose. Is the aim of therapy, really, for someone to come in and become more self-aware. And self-aware means, not just emotionally self-aware, but also body aware. So then they know when something is off, you kind of become aware of it, and then hopefully you go and do something about it, as opposed to not being aware for years and something hitting you like a truck out of nowhere. Isn't that right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, and as we see as in therapy, we see ourselves as we're talking about the stool or the system. like that, the chart, and that body, emotional mind piece, there's no separation. And so if there's something going on in the body, it's going to have an impact on how we're feeling and our minds.
Yeah.
And if we're going through, really difficult time, or our kids are maybe leaving home, or they're going through adolescence and it's really stressful, somebody might turn up for that, I suppose, and hopefully we'd catch, if they hadn't caught it already, the other things that are going on. But yeah, absolutely.
Because if you know what it is, like whilst we can't, you can't blame menopause for everything either. That's another side. It is knowing kind of, why am I just tired? Am I just tired, or is the menopause? And that's the ambiguity that's there sometimes. But I know for me personally, I found just knowing when I'm tired, and whether it's because I'm tired physically or whether it's tired because of the hormones, it doesn't matter. I'm tired. So I know I began to become body aware and actually know, I got a better awareness of my limitations, because I would have been a very high octane, here and there, and never say no to anything. And then I was like, you know what? I'm actually tired. I'm going to say no. And that was one of the biggest things I learned kind of in the last 10 years, whether it's menopause or whether it's just been tired. It doesn't matter. It's being body aware, isn't it? And just saying, no, I'm actually going to be a better person if I don't do this or say no to something.
But I think, Tara, that as women, this is part of the problem. As women, we're kind of socialized to give and to be for others, right? And so this idea of going to therapy, a lot of us might find this really self-indulgent. It's about me, and what about the money, and can I find this, somebody needs this or that and the other. So for somebody to actually turn the mirror internally and begin to look at themselves and reflect on themselves, even to give themselves a bit of headspace. I mean, I was sitting doing one of our fabulous Ellie, who's the yoga teacher, sitting doing a yoga session with Ellie, trauma sensitive yoga, which is amazing. I'm just flagging that because I think it's amazing. And I said, oh my God, I just said, do you know I haven't actually stopped for me like this? But and I'm not somebody who's a martyr. I enjoy my Friday nights, but I actually hadn't stopped for so long, just, turning around, and this is, oh my God, it's just me. And I've given myself this whole hour to do just all this stuff for me. And so I think a lot of us are like that. We're so caught up in everybody else and all the things we have to do for everyone else, that it's really not maybe likely that a woman in her late 40s, early 50s will take herself off to therapy or off to see you, Tara, because we're not maybe encouraged to do that from the get-go, age 0, some of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you don't start making time for yourself now, I mean, there's one thing, an opportunity. The menopause and the perimenopause can like with everything that life gives us, it can have its upside, and can have a gift, which is putting yourself first, saying no, listening to yourself before you listen to everybody else. So, and it could be a place of huge transformation, because now maybe you'll be like, okay, so this is my next stage in my life. What do I want out of this? And I've done all the stuff I was supposed to do, but now what about me? So we could also look at it that way. And I'm conscious about time. So the support group, we have a person who signed up through Facebook for the support group. Yay! So we're hoping to start next week. Could you just tell us a little bit what could women expect from the space that we're hoping to create next Monday?
So I suppose we really want to be able to provide that connection that we've been talking about today for a small group of women up to 12, to really allow ourselves to either listen or talk, so there's no pressure on anyone at all to do anything, and connect in and support people through this process that we've been talking about for an hour and a quarter once a week for 6 weeks. Isn't that right, Jill?
That's it. So we're going to get up running next Monday. We were hoping to do it in September. And we were both shocked to see that there was, I really do believe there is a movement. Sarah said there is more and more women talking about it, but they're talking about it and actually moving into action can be a
Mhm.
very difficult stage. And this group can actually be that catalyst, hopefully, that will help women to come in, process, unpack all this, whatever the menopause means to you, and then hopefully open the door to, this, who knows, this next stage in your life, this exciting new stage in your life,
Exactly.
if anything.
Yeah.
I think. Tara, just very quickly, how you're a naturopath, and I'm conscious that we didn't really touch on what does a naturopath actually do for those of us who might not know.
Sure. So naturopathy is really looking at the underlying imbalances that are going on in the body, and identifying what they are. So rather than just treating the symptoms, my approach is identifying those underlying balances and adapting a protocol to bring the body back into balance. So obviously menopause is perimenopause. Menopause is one of those key times in your life when lots of things are out of balance. So nutrition is a great way, a great time as well to take that step back. What way do I want to be looking, feeling in 10, 20 years time? It's a really good time to take that step back, take the time out, adapt and change. Your lifestyle as well is a huge part of that. So nutrition and lifestyle are the two areas that I would look at. Adopt a plan for you, and hopefully send you on your way in this exciting time. We're calling it an exciting time now, I think, are we? What are you feeling?
Yeah. So remember, we're all hot. Just to recap.
Yeah.
Just to recap, we're all hot. Tara thinks so, so that's great. And then we're all going into an exciting time. And you know what? I love how Inside Matters is hopefully going to be this kind of one-stop shop. Sometimes I hate that term, but I love this idea of a woman who's maybe beginning to feel that they're maybe on the verge of the perimenopause. They come in to Inside Matters, and maybe they come into a group next week, and then after that they might maybe think, hang on, while I'm here and I started looking inwards, why don't I start seeing a therapist? And then hang on, while I'm there, there's some physical imbalances here that maybe Tarot, our naturopath, can help us with. So I just love that, because I suppose the whole impetus of Inside Matters was, I wanted to create something that I didn't have when I was looking for help. And hopefully there'll be women who are coming behind me who'll go, hey, actually, I just go to this place and they'll sort me out. Come in.
Brilliant.
I can just almost visualize the woman coming in going, oh God, it's like a big dark cloud over their head, and then as they walk out, they're like skipping.
Absolutely. On a journey to better health.
That's it. And you can use so many, and each woman is different, each person is different. You can use all different approaches, and at least the options are there, So thank you so much for joining us. Here, we got a message from Vanessa. Is the course in person or in Zoom? On Zoom, it's online, right?
It's online, online at 6:00. Yeah, on Monday.
Yeah, exactly. So sign up and just be brave. Let's do this.
Yay.
All right.
Yay.
So thank you so much to our counseling psychologist and psychotherapist, Dr. Zuleika Daly, and of course our naturopath, Tara O'Neill. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll be booking an appointment with you, Tara, very soon. But I'm well overdue a checkup. So thank you. Have a lovely Monday, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, Phil.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.